Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and everything seemed to have gone wrong today.
Yes.
I got a Blake Lively story wrong. All of our electronics broke on our morning show. I was a little late, and then the light bulb broke behind you just before this show.
Yes.
So we'll see if we can't turn it around and see what goes on here.
We're still here, and we're still going to keep trying. So
Okay, we'll update the Blake Lively story because there were updates, and I was actually wrong this morning, so I like to make corrections when I am wrong.
Yes.
And you have the King of the Hill story as well?
Yes, so according to BBC, Blake Lively drops 2 claims against Justin Baldoni. In the morning, I believe we said she didn't want to drop them because yesterday she didn't.
Well, there was an article stating over the weekend that she wasn't going to drop the charges. It went pretty in depth on it. I read the article. I said, okay, well, I'll give an update on this. And then there was an update today that she actually is dropping one of the lawsuits.
Yes.
And this is, which lawsuit is this?
The actress Blake Lively has attempted to withdraw 2 of the claims she made about director Justin Baldoni. Both have been engaged in a legal dispute. Baldoni's legal team asked Lively to release her medical records, including therapy notes as part of a defense against her claims she suffered severe emotional distress and pain, humiliation, and embarrassment. Lively is trying to drop claims of intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligent infliction of emotional distress.
And that was the actual one. That was the strongest case that she had that didn't really waver was the emotional distress case. The fact that she's dropping her strongest part of her lawsuit is a bad indication for her. She might as well just try to drop it all. Siddle, this is costing not only her career, but Ryan Reynolds, his career. This is having a bad rub off on him. I was a huge Ryan Reynolds fan before this. I still am. I'm still going to go watch his movies, but this is really affecting him in a bigly negative way.
Yeah, and I mean, with Disney, I mean, we saw what they did, how they dropped Johnny Depp like a hot potato as soon as allegations came out. And it took a very long time. I mean, and he keeps saying no, and the whole llama joke that he'd only do Pirates of the Caribbean if they gave him, I don't know how many billions of dollars and a llama. And then somebody did bring a llama to the courthouse. But it took a very long time for Disney to accept, like, oh, okay, this guy didn't do anything wrong. So with Ryan Reynolds' reputation, with Disney struggling to have any actors that have no controversies, with Rachel Zegler, with hopefully eventually, after what I've released about Pedro Pascal, and many other celebrities that are now within the Disney sphere that have murky things in their past or connections or have said stupid things. So we'll see if they decide to keep Ryan Reynolds, which is now one of the few people they have that are big enough to actually maybe sustain another Marvel thing or maybe even Star Wars, which he wants to make into an R-rated thing. But I don't know. I mean, it stains the reputations of both of them. Justin Baldoni's ending up looking good. And at the same time, like, she probably dropped it because Baldoni's team was asking for these medical records that she wasn't willing to provide to, reinforce her claim. So now she's having to drop it because probably it wasn't true, etc.
Well, Justin Baldoni's an insufferable feminist, but as much as I don't like the guy, he's right in this case, and they really did go after him. And honestly, I've looked a lot into this through Candace Owens, and she has done great research on this. It seems like a conspiracy with a lot of people to steal this IP right out from underneath of him.
Which is not even a good IP, is what I don't understand. This whole fight over this movie that everybody wants to be able to control, it's not a good movie, and it's not a good book. So why do they want to fight over control over it?
Well, I think part 2 may do fairly well because it's going to have a lot of controversy over it.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But I mean, even the author, Caroline Hoover?
I believe so.
Hoover is also problematic and had a whole thing with her son as well. So, I mean, it's drowning in controversies. And, I mean, Blake Lively won't be in it probably if they do a second one.
Maybe Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That would be popular with the left.
Do you want to continue on to... Actually, seen you did a story on your Spanish channel about this. What?
King of the Hill?
Yeah, King of the Hill.
Yeah, so this is coming from Andy No. He's an investigative reporter. Also,
and this story kind of blew up because I just kind of shoved it in my morning show because I used to watch King of the Hill. Mm-hmm. I didn't know all the backstory on this. And
me either.
People have been messaging me today talking about this. And I was like, okay, maybe we should do some research. I'm glad you did do the research.
I started seeing things that went against, the main storyline, that it was a hate crime and that it was because he was gay, etc. So Andy No, who is gay himself, an investigative reporter and journalist, says King of the Hill voice actor Jonathan Jaws was pew-pewed and passed away on Sunday, June 1st. Jaws was best known for as the voice of the character John Redcorn. Leftists are using an unsubstantiated Facebook post made by Jaws' trans partner as evidence that Jaws was ended in a homophobic hate crime by a Latino neighbor. So already we have all of these buzzwords and all of these identity politics coming into play.
Well, I honestly had put this in my morning show, and I had a bad take on it because I knew, and my morning show, I literally gather stories like 2 hours before I go on the air, and then we read them live on the air. Mm-hmm. I had no idea about the story, and I really didn't know what to say. I watched it back. I was like, oh my God. So that's what happened.
But now we're correcting it.
That's what happens on live TV, I guess.
Corrections Day. San Antonio PD disputes the statement, saying there is no evidence of a hate motivation. Neighbors of Jaws have made statements to local media saying that the property where Jaws was ended has been an empty lot after a house fire, and that he frequently returned there and was not always a good presence in the neighborhood. They state he often ranted outside and got into disputes with people in the neighborhood. Witnesses say he was also got angry if people drove past the property. Jaws recently discussed his struggles with substance abuse and mental health on a podcast, and there we can see the husband and also the...
That's a man?
No.
Oh, that's a... What do you mean?
It's a girl that thinks he's a boy. It's a woman that thinks she's a trans man, so a woman. A biological woman.
It's a biological woman, but he's saying it's his husband.
Yes.
My God, what's this word?
Because it's a trans man.
Yeah,
so
but I understand all that things, but why wouldn't you just date a woman at that point? Okay.
And, I mean, we do see here that the San Antonio PD says that they're currently investigating the ending of the life. Despite online claims of this being a hate crime, currently the investigation has found no evidence to indicate that Mr. Jaws' ending of life was related to his sexual orientation. And, I mean, if you want to see who was making the claims that it was this person.
Yeah, and a lot of the time when...
Because it's... okay, you go.
A lot of the time when it's an LGBTQ victim or a female victim, they go right to this is a hate crime. Mm-hmm. And it's really just... They jump to conclusions too quickly very often.
And because it happened right when Pride started, at least in the U.S., and there's all this conversation about, they're right and they're coming for the alphabet community, etc. They wanted to latch onto this and say, oh, this is evidence because the husband is saying that this happened. But then neighbors came out on Facebook under Facebook posts saying this isn't true. They were a nuisance. They had issues with this other man who was caught, who's Latino. For years now, there also there was apparent evidence of them trying to start a substance lab in their home, and that's why it blew up in January. Oh, they were trying to cook things.
Oh.
Like there's a whole, and apparently it's not in a very nice place of San Antonio, so there's a whole backstory that, of course, the ones that want to latch onto this story as proof that Trump's America is very dangerous won't want to say.
Yeah, I was going to say something. I forgot now. You jabbered on for a bit too long there.
Sorry. Well, I wanted to get it on. Yes.
Okay, let's move on to the next story if you want.
Once again, Jackie Chan didn't train for Karate Kid Legends. I don't need to anymore. I've been training every day for 64 years.
Well, and this is one take I had right on my morning show, and he doesn't need to train. He was a blue-collar actor that really worked his way up from the bottom up. He did all of his own stunts, did a lot of his own production, he had his own stunt teams. He trained from scratch. He did a lot of movies over in China, then the U.S. He trained martial arts from a young age. He trained acting from a fairly young age once he got into film and stuff like that. And yeah, he's not going to get it. He is what he is now. He's not going to get any better. And especially in a high-budget Hollywood movie like this, he has a lot less input. So for him, this must be a walk in the park. He just goes in there, reads his lines, and that's it. Because very often, I don't know if people know about Jackie Chan, but he's highly involved in script writing, the production, everything behind the scenes as well, usually. So
I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you don't have a take on it?
Well, I mean, I would think he's old enough he doesn't need to train, does he?
No.
Well, I'm thinking of like jiu-jitsu masters that are very old and
He doesn't do jiu-jitsu. I do jiu-jitsu. Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking of like these wise old men that are usually like the masters of things.
You're just confusing me at this point.
Fine. I'm gonna.
Are you calling me a wise old man that's a master now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm going to read your comments. Rafa says, hello. And Rafa about Jonathan Joss says, so he wasn't actually gay, just hetero with extra steps. Lately, we see that more and more. And Justice Chambers says, cats throw hissy fits, not men. And I mean, I just put that title on to be, to cause a stir. Maybe it
what
might...
title? The title in this video?
Yeah, that Elon Musk threw a hissy fit against Trump's bill.
Oh, we should get into that because that was the headline story, and then we can come back to some of the pop culture news.
Sure. Let me find it then.
Okay. Did you bookmark it for the show or no?
I have it. Hold on.
You're finding it now, it looks like.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was the headline story. Why didn't you have the one story that we knew we were going to talk about?
Because I was following our list of stories, and I didn't see that one. Okay.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about Fortnite while you get your stuff together there.
Thank you.
Okay, Fortnite Star Wars crossover concedes with lowest player coincides with lowest player count in 2 years.
And this is coming from That Park Place. Just show the article quickly before you start talking about it. Hold on. It's coming from That Park Place. Link is in the description. If you don't follow or don't know who That Park Place is, they do a lot of reporting about the entertainment industry from a different perspective. And also, they do live shows with WDW Pro, so go follow them. We always say the same thing, but
yeah.
continue.
WDW Pro actually retweeted our video.
Yes.
Didn't they?
So thank you.
So
if
that was
anybody
great.
saw our Pedro Pascal expose, I was trying to get it to someone that could expand, use that story and show it to a wider crowd, because I think it's important that nobody's talking about that, and he continues to victimize himself.
Yeah, so hopefully somebody steals the idea and actually makes another video, and that gets some more traction.
Yeah,
because it's important the story.
Yeah.
It's important the story gets out, not just that we do it.
Yeah.
We had 95 subscribers. I was surprised we made it to 100 today.
Yes, so thank you.
That was a nice little push.
Yes, and so yes, I mean, Fantastic Four is coming out, Eddington is coming out, so right now would be a great time for people to tell him, stop victimizing yourself.
Okay, well, hold on. What was this Eddington movie? You were trying to tell me the other day, and it didn't connect with me, but now I'm thinking it was a Trump hate movie, or?
Kind of. So Eddington, from what I've read, I'm not 100%, I mean, I watched bits of the trailer, but apparently it's about a fictionalized town where a sheriff and other townspeople, I believe Pedro Pascal is the sheriff. I mean, I can look it up if you want me to read it.
I think I watched the trailer now, and I think it looked
and
horrible.
It's about,
did it look like an artsy movie?
Kind of. It's set during the bad times, I'll say it that way, of 2020, 2021, and when people were refusing
very strange.
When people were refusing to wear masks and get the jab, It talks about that, and it's kind of goes against that crowd, so like the MAGA crowd.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Film Threat was talking about it. So this was a few weeks ago. So I went to watch the trailer, and it was so bad I forgot all about it. But then you also tried to talk to me about it, and it just the fact that I had already watched the trailer didn't compute with me. It did not look very good, though.
I found the Musk thing. If you want to go there.
Yeah, let's go there.
So Musk, this is coming from BBC.
And of course, they're using the picture. There was a big controversy about him being a drug addict, him having a black eye. The liberal media is really trying to smear him right now.
So Musk calls. Well, I think they're happy with him right now. Musk calls Trump's tax bill a disgusting abomination on his X. Elon Musk has hit out at President Donald Trump's signature tax and spending bill, describing it as a disgusting abomination in a widening rift between the two allies, and we have a different take on this. The budget, which includes multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks and more defense spending, while also allowing the U.S. government to borrow that. Shame on those who voted for it, Musk said on X on a post, and he had other posts, so I can try to find them.
Yeah, and I also...
Oh, here it is.
When they had their public split, I think they need to have a little bit of a rift, so he can kind of salvage his businesses, things like this. If he is constantly connected at the hip with Trump, they're going to keep firebombing these Tesla dealerships. He was already talking about he was going to leave Doge on his own. He was only supposed to be there for a set amount of time. I think maybe they talked behind the scenes and said it's better if we have a public feud or rift when I do split. That way, maybe he'll get less backlash. At least that would be my thinking on it.
And he was also retweeting Rand Paul, who was also complaining about the bill and saying that they should continue to cut spending and not just inflate the debt for the U.S., which you had a different take as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to claim I'm an economics expert. I was watching something about it, though, saying that the amount of spending every year is directly connected with how much the US dollar is worth. They have to print a certain amount of money to get that money in circulation. If they just go to pay off the debt, there's not going to be enough money in circulation, and that would negatively affect the US dollar. Now, I'm not sure about all this. I was watching some things quickly because I was interested in why Trump was spending so much. And so I was doing a little bit of research on why that would be. And some people are saying he actually is shifting where the money's spent, but he has to spend a certain amount of money in order to get that money into circulation. So I'm not sure if that's the actual case, but it's worth noting, I guess.
And now, like, Rand Paul is also fighting with.
And Rand Paul's great. And
Yes.
so is both the Pauls are good.
He said, I want to see tax cuts made permanent, but I also want to see the $5 trillion in new debt removed from the bill. At least 4 of us in the Senate feel this way. And Elon Musk was also retweeting him and stuff that was supporting this. And now Trump came out with truth going against Rand Paul. So there's a rift, but is it a real rift?
Well, you know what I was also seeing today? They were talking about how much they're defunding USAID to the tune of 8 point something billion dollars. And then also NPR and PBS were getting defunded to the tune of like 1.1 billion or something. That was a huge amount of money.
And well, I did a story about the Trevor Project crying about losing funding as well.
Well, yeah, because I thought CBS in Canada, that's the Canadian propaganda network or the government propaganda network up there. And I thought they were overly funded, but I guess it's happening in the States as well, just as much.
Well, yes, because it's a public service, supposedly, but doesn't
But
actually serve the public.
I didn't realize how much funding they got because the CBC in Canada, it's put out there because the alternative media got a hold of those numbers and they got a hold of that like a bone, and they keep irking on that because it is a lot of money and they only ever tell one side of the story.
Now, Benny Johnson says and shows President Trump goes scorched earth on Rand Paul for being against his one big beautiful bill. He loves voting no on everything. He thinks it's good politics, but it's not. He said Donald Trump said, Rand Paul has very little understanding of the BBB, big beautiful bill, especially the tremendous growth that is coming. He loves voting no on everything. He thinks it's good for politics, but it's not. The BBB is a big winner.
Yeah, overall, he's if he gets this bill passed, there was talk that they were going to make it into 2 bills. If they did that, one of them was probably going to get stopped, or people were going to start asking for a lot of things, and he's going to have to make concessions. By putting it all in one bill, if he manages to get this thing passed, he's not going to need Congress for 18 months. So he's definitely going to make some concessions here. But once this is passed, you're going to see him continue to do what he's doing. I like what he's doing with the tariffs. I like what he's doing with a lot of things. It may negatively impact a lot of the global economy, but he's really doing reworking the infrastructure of the U.S., bringing back manufacturing, and so far, so good. I thought there would be more of a collapse or more of a downturn in the market. He's really been able to manipulate that market, and I keep saying it, but I'm going to say it again. He's been talking about this for 40 years. One of the major interviews he did was in 1988 with Oprah Winfrey, and he spoke very in-depthly about tariffs. A lot of people aren't aware that he's had this plan in his head for a long time, and he's a good businessman. So if anybody's going to try to implement these tariffs, maybe he's the guy.
And they might not work as well, but at least it's trying to do something different.
Exactly.
But I mean, with Musk, Trump, now Rand Paul, do you think they are still, buddy, or he did throw a hissy fit about it?
Musk behind the scenes is having massive input, I'm sure, and he's going to have massive influence, and all that money he invested in the campaign, he's going to get back. Trump was bringing him on world tours to meet leaders, putting him forth as one of the major AI firms within the United States that the U.S. government is going to back. A lot of this was getting investment from the Middle East, specifically for AI, which Musk is therefore involved in. So this huge supercomputer he's building in Austin, which is supposed to be one of the world's biggest for AI, he's definitely going to have investment for now. So he's not going to have to shoe all that cost himself, I would think.
And with Ron Paul and the rest of people that are criticizing the bill and the spending and the debt.
Yeah, well, they're politicians as well. They have to. Nobody can say spending is a good thing. Trump also you have to realize he is doing a lot of things with the economy. Trying to implement these tariffs and things like this was expected to raise prices. It hasn't. It was also expected to crash the stock market, which it hasn't. If he just tries to cut all the spending at the same time he's doing all this, it's eventually something's going to crash it. So maybe for this year and next year, keeping the funding up while he is making the cuts is a good idea. He's doing a ton right now. He's only been in there 100 days. The way he's defunded DEI and the impact that has had on a global basis.
Well, yeah, we just saw when Pride Month started, there's no more rainbows on anybody's
and that's in
profile.
Canada.
No, in Canada, there was a lot.
No, but all the complaints that came through Toronto Pride, actually, all the major corporations were pulling out of it. So it actually was in Canada. A lot of this funding was getting defunded through U.S. companies.
Yes. And Rafa says Brett Cooper also criticized the bill. I haven't seen Brett Cooper in a while. I don't have time anymore.
Yeah, it's easy to criticize, but there's so many fundamental changes happening with the U.S. economy. I can look past if he's going to spend more. He needs to try to float the economy while he's bringing in tariffs and
juggling everything.
And juggling everything else. Yeah, it would be a hard time if he tries to cut spending at the same time he's trying to do these tariffs and other things. Yeah, because next year most of this tariff situation should be worked out with all these countries. So that would be a better time to cut spending when you're trying to negotiate these contracts and things are so uncertain. You want to have an influx of money into the economy. At least that would be my thinking. And I'm somebody that is for cutting spending overall, and I did like Doge. But I have to look at it. There is a lot of moving parts going on right now, and maybe cutting spending next year would be better.
And people, I mean, I think they're getting like riled up and excited that things are actually changing and happening. But at the same time, keeping some sort of stability might be like supersedes the.
Well, and even though the spending is way up, it's being shifted to different parts of the economy. So he's taking it out of the media. He's taking it out of NGOs and things like this. But that is
a very small amount in comparison.
It's not a small amount. And people keep saying, liberals I keep talking to keep saying, oh, it's a small amount. It's only a few $100 billion. That's bigger than most countries' economies. And when you think of the United States as 50 separate states, that's bigger than most individual states' economies. So if you do look at each state as its own sovereign kind of country, where they come together as the 50 strong, it's a lot of money, and it could make a difference. You could solve homelessness within the United States with this. You can solve any major problem with the amount of money that they actually have with this.
Yes, but there's too many interests tied up for anybody to ever do something about it.
I just think it's a bad talking point saying it's not a lot of money when it's a lot of money.
Okay. Want to move on to the next story?
Yeah.
Speaking of Democrats and politics.
Well, and we're short on pop culture. Do you have something to say?
Well, I was going to do Anthony Weiner, but.
Yeah. Oh, you look annoyed at me.
No.
No? Okay.
Because you started saying something.
We're short on pop culture stories today because there wasn't a lot of pop culture stories, actually. So even the pop culture stories I have in the pop culture section on our notes are starting to get political. So it's going to be a political show tonight.
Or do you want to go to...
There's nothing else.
To food?
No. Skip the Anthony Weiner story and we'll go into the Dollar General.
So this is coming from the AP. Dollar General posts record sales as bargain stores attract more people anxious about the economy. And they're going to love publishing these stories specifically because they want to do alarmism about the U.S. economy and how everybody's terrified about what's going to happen. But Dollar General set a quarterly sales record of $10.44 billion and upgraded its annual profit and sales outlook as Americans tighten their budgets and spend more at bargain stores and off-price retailers amid economic uncertainty. The U.S. economy shrank at a 0.2% annual pace from January through March, the first drop in 3 years, as President Donald Trump's trade wars dented spending by businesses. Consumers' spending slowed sharply, according to the AP.
Yeah, Dollar General in the States, in a lot of counties, especially in these food deserts and things like this, Dollar General is the only place to go. And then you might have a Walmart if you travel a little farther. But between the major Walmarts is these Dollar Generals. And yeah, I'm sure sales are way up. I know in Vancouver though, and I'm sure this is has to be the similar situation to lower income places in the States. But we were specifically talking about the Dollar Tree by our house when we used to live in Vancouver. Why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Well, it was in a very touristy area, but it does, I mean, I think they allowed it to become a breeding place for, violence and seedy people hanging out. And it kind of brought more of a nuisance than anything.
Oh, okay. Well, what I was going to say was they weren't making a huge profit. They had to have a whole security team, not just a security guard. They had whole security teams in there. We're talking like 5 to 10 people to patrol this Dollar General, 2 at the front door that were constantly slamming guys on the ground when I was there. They would just have their jackets filled with stuff. It was crazy.
Yeah. But what do you think about the articles and the rhetoric of this is all because of the tariffs?
Well, yeah,
people can't buy anything.
They're trying to attach it to the tariffs, but this is a bunch of propaganda because prices haven't really gone up yet. Now, I understand they're supposed to go up and they're expecting them to go up, but they haven't. So to pin this on the tariffs already, that's how you know this is propaganda.
So it's probably just panic buying and panicking the public in general.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes into the next story you have, which is Campbell Soup.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've seen a lot of these. We've seen a lot of these kinds of stories today and yesterday. But Campbell's company says sales rise as more Americans cook meals at home because they can't afford to eat out. Campbell Company said Monday it saw stronger sales of broth and condensed soup in its latest quarter as more Americans cook their meals at home. Consumers continue to cook at home and focus their spending on products that help them stretch their food budgets, and they're increasingly intentional about their discretionary snack purchases.
And is it just me, or maybe it's because we're not in the States and this is an American company, so maybe Campbell's is a bit cheaper in the States? But I always thought a can of soup in Canada, and even here, Campbell's Soup, I find it's expensive. It'd be cheaper just to buy a broth.
Or just to make it from scratch.
Yeah.
Because you get, the yield you get is way larger.
I always feel like that's not even a full meal, and I'm still going to be hungry, and it's fairly expensive for what it is.
People use it for recipes, but what I was going to say is, and I said it in English in the show in the morning, Campbell's Soup is not it's highly processed food again, and they even used to use red 40 food dyes and stuff like that. So it's not the best, healthiest thing to be eating even. But I also think, and I was going to say, a lot of this budget concerns and people not being able to afford stuff, that's dragging on from even before Trump got in.
Oh, yeah.
And then the hysteria that's being built up by a lot of the publications and by a lot of traditional news
They're just
media.
trying to prime people because they are expecting this price hike to come from the tariffs, and it probably will, but they're really just priming the psyche of the public. So when this does happen, they're already primed for it. I was also going to say Campbell's Soup, I really think a lot of people are especially after what happened with the toilet paper and the jibby jab era in the United States and Canada, that people do have basic supplies on hand. I know we went the other day because I was talking about those economic stories about the bond market. And I said, maybe we should just have some extra food in the house. And we stocked up. And I even got some canned soup, not Campbell's.
Yes.
I think I got a mushroom Campbell soup.
Okay. An expensive mushroom Campbell soup. Then.
A little bit, yeah.
Next?
Yeah, let's go into the next one here.
So I love this story because there's a funny anecdote.
And why we'll make this the last story from the pop culture because we did have to get into the politics.
Sure.
Okay, just for a future note, do less on the pop culture and go right into the politics.
Well, then delete them from the list. The iconic Goodyear blimp is 100 to celebrate a flight over Ohio. And you put it in there, I guess, because you didn't find anything else in the morning. But it reminded me of a funny anecdote. So do you want to talk about why you put the blimp up?
No. I want to hear your anecdote.
So a really long time ago, I learned that years ago, when George W. Bush Sr. was president, he sent a letter to his staff saying not to feed his overweight dog. But the reason I put it is, so he sent a memo to essentially everybody in the White House saying, my dog Ranger Recently, Ranger was put on a weight reduction program. Either that program succeeds or we have to enter Ranger in the Houston Fat Stock Show as a prime Hereford. All officers should take a formal pledge that reads as follows: we agree not to feed Ranger. We will not give him biscuits. We will not give him food of any kind. In addition, Ranger's access is hereby restricted. He has been told not to wander the corridors without an escort. This applies to the east and west wings, to the residents from the third floor to the very, very bottom basement. And it says they put a do not feed me badge in addition to his ID. And he also compared him to a blimp, although here they don't show the blimp thing. But essentially he said he was looking so big that they were comparing him to a blimp and stopped feeding him. And every time blimp comes up, I just remember the dog. And it was funny.
Let's get into the politics now, I guess. Just so, because all those stories I covered in the morning.
Yes.
So I really don't like covering the same stories.
So Rafa quickly says, Trump is being too reckless with all those tariffs. Economy is a really complex machinery, and you can't simply change pieces of it and believe it won't cause long-term harm.
Well, I don't know. We're going to see what happens. I'm in favor of what he's doing. I think it's going to cause harm on a global scale to other countries, but he's not the president of these other countries. He's the president of the United States. So if he can make the United States strong, and the United States really needs to put itself first for a little while because it was about to fall off a cliff. Their economy was really like a pyramid scheme that had to keep growing with the population starting to decrease soon. Continuing that pyramid scheme was going to be really hard. Also, China is going to overtake the U.S. if they keep going on the same path they were. China's on an upward trajectory where the United States was on a downward one. They have to do a total overhaul and a total rethinking of the economy.
And it could fail.
Yeah, it could definitely fail. I'm not saying it's not, it wouldn't, but I would rather take the shot now rather than just let China take over. At least you're going to die on your shield, and you're going to know if you could bring manufacturing back or it's too late. Or can you put the American people first? Is it possible to train American workers and give them priority and have wages kind of go up so one household can maybe buy a house and have a family again? I mean that's what the American dream was built upon.
That would take years and years, decades to actually transpire.
Well, it will take time, especially with AI and robotics coming in. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to do the changes need to happen now, otherwise they're done. They were going to be done. The amount of debt they have was going to collapse that economy. With these tariffs coming in and other things, at least it's something they can try. And potentially having two currencies, which this is the rumor, they're going to have an internal and an external currency, so they can sell their manufacturing to other countries with a lower U.S. dollar, which is beneficial to the United States, and then they'll have a strong U.S. dollar within the United States for its citizens. So yeah, he's reworking a lot of things. Any one thing can go wrong, but overall, I'm happy with what he's doing so far, and I realize that I am in the minority, and I'm fine with it.
Rafa says, yeah, but prices are still rising in the U.S. That's why I believe he should do that more gradually.
Well, they actually just fell by 0.3%. So people were really surprised on it because they brought in the press secretary to CNN and they drilled him on it, and he came back with that. So, but I do think prices are expected to rise, and I think they probably will rise. They're kind of staying stagnant right now, which I was actually surprised at. So we'll see what happens.
Because if he did it slower, like if he slowed down the whole tariff thing and didn't do it for every country at the same time, then that would have also collapsed everything.
He's also flooding the zone and making all these people come together at once. If he tries to do one country at a time, these countries are going to stay strong and other countries are going to support him. When he shows that he's trying to remodel the whole world economy, and the world currency, what was planned to happen was the EU's digital dollar was supposed to be the new world currency, and that's what they were planning on, and they were planning to go to war on the back of that. Trump looks like he's trying to completely supersede the EU. He has an alternative digital currency for them, which I think
I don't love, but
well, we'll see what happens. He's also it looks like he's trying to keep the old traditional American currency, so you have the choice. Hopefully. I know everybody I talk to doesn't agree with me. I'm the only one that says I like Trump's plan and what he's doing, and I'm fine with it. I'll keep on keeping on.
And I mean, again, we'll see if he would have gone slower. It could have also collapsed in a similar way, and the decoupling and deglobalizing in a certain way, or at least trying to get countries also to go back to care about their national interests as well, and not just also depend on the U.S. or depend upon each other. I mean, after the bad times of 2020, we did see what the effects of relying too much on each other were, economically at least.
Well, and I do remember this. The same debate was happening with Trump before with immigration. He set out the line for immigration, and the world was controlled by globalists. Immigration wasn't even in the conversation. So when you would say you need to put your own citizens first, whatever country it is, whether it's Canada, Mexico, or the U.S., they would say, "Oh no, we need to tear down borders. We need immigration. Immigration is a good thing. Immigration, yes, can be a good thing, but at the rate it's happening now, and I think the narrative has completely shifted on that. I think most people are on board with cleaning up, and putting your citizens first."
Most, but speaking of Canada.
Here we go.
And speaking of an example of a country that's doing the exact opposite almost. So Canada, this is coming from Mark Nixon, and we'll listen to him for a little bit. Canada, economy recession, jobs gone, immigration exploding. Canada immigration, 817,000 in 4 months, 491,000 foreign work permits. Mainstream media doesn't cover it, so Mark Nixon will.
Yeah, okay. We got the clip. And I thought we were going to go into the politics, actually, though.
Isn't this politics?
Oh, it is?
Well, yes, it's Canada.
Oh, okay.
Or what other politics do you want?
The section that says politics.
Oh, I figured this was part of
the
politics.
stories that we haven't done yet.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Do you want me to skip this
No,
one?
let's continue this. We already built up the story now.
Okay.
We just got some new data. The biggest story in 2025, and our mainstream media is non-existent. They're not covering the story whatsoever. It's Canada's immigration plan. Imagine this. 16 fully loaded to the brim 747 jetliners landing in Canada every single day. Each jetliner has 416 people. And guess what? All of them have one-way tickets. And if for some reason there's a day off, that means a fully loaded 747 jetliner is landing in Canada every 45 minutes in this country. And they're all one way. And it gets even more insane. Our federal government is financially helping these people move here, travel expenses, and settlements. They're settling here, and they're providing these individuals with a 0% loan.
Okay, that's pretty good. I mainly wanted the front part of that.
And I mean, this is the alternative to what Trump has been doing, and is what many countries have been doing for the longest time. I mean, we see what's happening in Paris right now, in France as well. The Netherlands, a lot of different countries that are now realizing that maybe this strategy that they have kept trying to build upon hasn't worked for the longest time.
Well, and I also just say they're all coming around to Trump's policies as far as immigration goes, border security, even the military. They're all pumping up their militaries for national defense. Some of these countries want offense, but they're all coming around to his way of thinking. And may I say it, a lot of people are against the tariffs, but all these other countries already have their tariffs on the United States. Canada had 200% and 300% tariffs. We reported on this. This was on the United States. It's not like the United States is trying to put unreasonable tariffs on other countries. They want reciprocal tariffs, meaning if a country has a tariff on them, they want to put it back on that country. And the way they're calculating it might be a little odd, but they're trying to calculate all the countries at once and just get a ballpark number. And it's bringing a lot of people to the table, and it's showing Trump who's with him, who's against him. So when he goes forward, he'll know what to do, especially with the BRICS applying a lot of pressure with their own digital currency expected to come in Brazil in the next BRICS meeting. Mm-hmm. That's going to be huge. So he really needs to secure who's friend, who's foe, and he needs to strengthen the United States because the United States is kind of standing on its own right now.
Yeah, because a lot of them still have plans. And I mean, Canada as well. Speaking of Canada, so hidden inside a border security bill, this is coming from Peter McCaffrey.
I just got this story.
Canada's central banker prime minister is going to further centralize banking. The bill would outlaw cash transactions greater than $10,000.
Yeah, and I completely disagree with this. This is crazy. You're sneaking things into the bill, and we already know Canada's legislation is ready to go with their digital currency. Other than the EU, they've already passed the legislation. They're very far advanced. They just kind of need a trigger mechanism, some kind of emergency, I would assume, in order to bring that digital currency in. They're already trying to slip things in to get rid of cash in large quantities.
And they did this through a border bill, which is exactly what we were talking about before, that they are maybe trying to align on the surface a bit more with the one ally they still have, Trump, but they're hiding things inside that are more worrying.
They know that border bill is going to have to pass and conservatives are going to vote for it, so they're sneaking things into these bills. Mm-hmm. So, and he's refusing to still come out with a budget, which is crazy.
Yes.
So
the central banker doesn't have a budget.
This was all Parliament voted today that he has to have a budget, but by law, he even if he doesn't present one, he can just go month by month if he wants. So we'll see what happens.
Until he can declare an emergency and then bring in his plan.
Well, and then he doesn't have to show the budget in that case.
That too. Next.
Yep.
So the UN chief, this is coming from Wide Awake Media, UN chief Antonio Guterres declares war on social media platforms. We did a similar story about von der Leyen, the EU's president. Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and pressing global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. So it's interesting, and we did talk about it when we spoke about Ursula von der Leyen.
Well, and I'm going to go more in depth on this because I was watching a podcast just before this show, and it's crazy what's going on in Germany right now. What happened in World War II is happening, but from this progressive liberal perspective, the EU sees itself as not only upholding Germany and German values, but they're the center of the EU universe. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but why don't we watch that clip?
Yes.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. Our policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms puts forward a framework for a concerned international response.
And like you said, we seen van der Leyen the other day, but it's like they think people can't think for themselves. Mm-hmm. Like you watch shows, if you feel that they're good sources of information, you're going to continue to watch them. If you feel like they're bad sources, then you're going to weed them out yourself. It's not like you're watching everything online. So
it's the removal of free speech and the actual danger they see of free speech to what the coordinated plan was.
Well, and it's more than that because they're taking away the rights of their citizens. They're taking citizenship away from their own citizens. And what do I mean by that? I was watching a podcast just before this with a German author. Maybe I'll write down the name so I can give it to everybody on the next show. But her book was about what happened with the Ukraine-Russian war. There was a girl that was Ukrainian and Russian but was born in Germany, so she was a German citizen. A similar situation happened with a second individual, but I'll tell the story of the first one first. So she had never done a lot of reporting or anything like that, but once the war broke out, she went over to Russia, went over to Ukraine, reported a little bit on the ground from both sides, did fairly balanced journalism. We know the amount of propaganda that was happening, especially in the beginning of the Ukraine war. When she eventually tried to come back to Germany, they wouldn't let her in the country, and she's a German citizen, which is crazy. And this happened to a second German citizen as well, where they just won't let him back into the country because they're journalists, and it was another journalist, and they don't agree with what they're saying. So,
and I mean, there is a concerted effort that is becoming clearer and clearer about highlighting how dangerous social media is, and either to use it as a security threat and then start instituting policies that censor people more and more, like Canada has tried, like Australia has tried, like how Mexico is going to try eventually. They've said it. But also, it ruins their whole coordinated plan to make this misinformation, disinformation thing, this boogeyman that they can fight against by censoring everybody.
Well, the reason it's such a big thing for the progressive globalists now is because they had this architecture and this plan for total global control with digital currency and everything, and a lot of these things still might come in, but they're not going. They can feel the control slipping. It's not coming together like they thought, and it's all because of that one thing of independent media really speaking up and free speech. This independent media allows, and think platforms like YouTube and Rumble allow independent think tanks, and people are able to talk to one another, really hash out their ideas. I think Trump's tariffs are good. Somebody else thinks they're bad, but we talk about them, and then the best idea comes to the forefront.
And there were also safe havens, RUMBLE and YouTube, for YouTube not so much for a while, but for scientists that were censored, scientists that were trying to publish evidence that went against what the official channels and the experts were saying, even though they were experts themselves, well, professors that have been taken out of universities for thinking the wrong thing, very 1984. And these social media platforms have become safe havens, but they're going to focus and localize on the hate speech and the bad things people may be saying, or the tiny minority of people that think very radical things, even though on the left they don't care about that. They champion them. They're going to focus on that to try to make an example out of it and say this is very dangerous. I mean, we've seen the UK. They're arresting people for causing someone anxiety from something somebody else posted even.
And for memes.
Yes, and for memes.
And this is supposed to be a democracy. This is supposed to be, the West is supposed to be, one of the fundamental principles is free speech
and liberty.
Like, how are they going against free speech itself? And they're like,
because it's dangerous.
It's absolutely insane. And but that podcast was actually, you know what?
I'm just trying to look for it.
I have it.
And as Robert Barnes says, constitutional lawyer, whom we like and appreciate sometimes. As he always says, it's confession through projection. So they're confessing to the actual dangers of what they think and what they're trying to spread by saying that the ones that are going against them are the dangerous ones that are spreading misinformation and that are causing people harm with their ability to talk and think freely.
It's called Neutrality Studies is the name of the channel, and the episode is Europe's Terminal Decline is now irreversible.
I'll put it in the description. I'll do it this time. I keep forgetting to put stuff in the description.
This doctor on here was just phenomenal, and the way she was talking about EU free speech and things like that, and especially Germany, was good. I'll just say that.
Rafa says, I could bet that old dude is a lizard. Probably. Walker says, the UN saying that social media is used to subvert science and misinform when the WHO, it's because he put the initials in Spanish. I was trying to remember in English. So the OMS, Organización Mundial de la Salud, or World Health Organization, has accepted Chinese medicine as real medicine. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and this scientism is like this new religion, and like when they say the science is settled and this is the scientific data, you have to follow us for it. It's extremely authoritarian, and science is always changing. So for somebody to act like they're justified in all their actions because the science is on their side, when we know very good and well a lot of this science is manipulated and funded by alternative interests.
Interests. And also, I mean, science, its whole ethos, its whole raison d'etre, its whole, like, why science exists is to further knowledge and to keep investigating and to keep finding things. Science has never settled. And the scientists that came out to say that during the terrible times, or that keep trying to say it now, be it with trans people and the studying of what actually causes, et cetera, or the jibby jabs, or anything else, they keep getting canceled.
The study of hate speech. Oh, it's causing suicides. We can't have hate speech. We got to protect the people. Like, it's crazy.
Yes. Why
don't we move over to RUMBLE, just because we didn't move over the last night, and the next story is a little bit touchy for YouTube.
Sure. And then Walker and Rafa are now friends. So they're saying, oh, you did come. Yes, I did come. So I'm glad you found friendship in
The channel.
the channel. And Rafa also says, remember, craniology was also science some years ago. Yeah, I mean, lobotomies were trusted ways of fixing people back in the day. And I feel like the same thing is going to happen with transitioning minors.
We were talking to some of your friends, and they watch the show once in a while, and they're like, oh, yeah, we know who Walker and
Yeah.
Rafa are because you're constantly reading their comments out.
Yeah.
So.
Now everybody recognizes your name. So thank you for being here. We're going over to RUMBLE to talk about subjects that YouTube doesn't love. So we'll see you over there. And should I do my ridiculous clap?
No.
Okay. Fine. I'll just wave. It's okay, Walker, that you put the initials in Spanish. I was just trying to do it quickly in my brain to say WHO. But ending it on YouTube, head over to RUMBLE, same name over there. We can't link it because YouTube doesn't like that. So we'll see you over there.
Okay, and I'm logged in on Rumble now, so
You said Rumble before I stopped it.
that's fine. Okay, and I'll get into, because